She lured me into a fake inheritance scheme, then secretly transferred $250, $0 from our joint account to her sister before filing for divorce. Now she's claiming I stole the house worth over $1 million in a bitter court battle. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get like this, but here I am, staring at a mountain of lies and betrayal I never saw coming. It all started with little things, her phone ringing at odd hours, her suddenly being busy when I needed her, and her brushing off any questions about where she was or who she was talking to. But the real shock came when I found out she'd been cheating on me with her Jason. We'd been married for 8 years. Lisa was the kind of woman who always seemed to have an answer for everything, even when she was lying. She had a sharp tongue and a bitchy attitude always. Quick with a snide comment or a dismissive look. But underneath that, I'd believed she loved me, or at least I thought I did. We had a decent life, 2 kids, a nice house, a joint bank account that I thought was safe. It was a Thursday evening when I started to notice things. Her phone kept buzzing while she was in the shower. I'd catch her sneaking her phone away whenever I came into the room. That was weird, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I figured maybe she was talking to her sister or a friend. But then I noticed the messages, long late-night texts that didn't sound like friendly chats. She'd delete them quickly like she was trying to hide something. One night I got fed up. I took her phone while she was out running errands and scrolled through her messages. That's when I saw it, explicit texts, flirtatious messages, plans to meet up. My stomach sank. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I'd always known Lisa was a bit bitchy, but I never thought she'd cheat. Not on me, not after all these years. I confronted her the next morning. She was brushing. Her teeth, her face cold and dismissive. I threw the phone on the counter and told her I knew about Jason. Her eyes flicked and she scoffed. "You're crazy," she said. "You're just paranoid. I don't know what you're talking about." But I wasn't buying it. The evidence was right there. She got defensive, started yelling, calling me insecure, accusing me of snooping. She said Jason was just a friend, that I was overreacting, but I knew better. I felt a mixture of anger, hurt, and betrayal. How could she do this? After everything we built? I was furious, more at myself for not noticing sooner, more at her for throwing away 8 years of marriage over some guy at work. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, the late nights, her secretive phone calls, the way she'd look at Jason like he was the only thing that mattered. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. I was angry at her, yes, but also at myself for missing the signs, for trusting her so blindly. I wondered what she'd done behind my back, how deep this went. But what really tore me apart was realizing that I was just another pawn in her game. She'd been lying for months, maybe longer, and the worst part, I had no idea what to do next. I felt completely lost, betrayed, humiliated, and more alone than I'd ever been. That's when I started to realize this was about more than just an affair. It was about money, control, and her total disregard for what we had. But I'll get to that later. For now, I just wanted to get this out. After I confronted her that morning, Lisa's attitude didn't change much. She kept insisting I was paranoid, that Jason was just a friend, and that I was overreacting because I didn't trust her. Honestly, I was too stunned to argue much. My mind was racing, trying to connect all the dots, trying to figure out how long this had been going on and what it meant for us. The next few days were a blur. She continued her usual bitchy attitude, throwing tantrums whenever I questioned her, and insisting she was the victim of my insecurity. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I decided to dig deeper, to find out exactly how deep her lies went. That's when I started looking into our bank accounts, our emails, and her phone logs. What I found was shocking. Turns out, Lisa had been sneaking around with Jason for at least 3 months. I discovered a bunch of encrypted messages, secret transfers, and even a hidden email account she'd set up just to communicate with him. It was obvious she'd planned this for a while. But what really threw me for a loop was that she'd also been orchestrating some kind of financial scheme, something about a fake inheritance that she'd been pushing me to sign paperwork for. She'd been convincing me to invest in some supposed inheritance scheme that was supposed to set us up for life. But it was just a scam. She knew it was bogus, and I later found out she'd been using that as a cover to transfer money. The day I discovered the scheme, I also found out she'd secretly transferred $250, $0 from our joint account to her sister's account, without telling me. That's when I realized she'd been planning her escape for a long time. I confronted her again, showing her the evidence. She got even more belligerent, calling me paranoid and jealous, insisting she'd done nothing wrong. She said the money was for her sister's emergency, and that I was just paranoid about her cheating. But I knew better. I knew she'd been lying about everything, her affair, her financial manipulations, her entire game plan. That night I felt like I was losing my mind. I was furious, betrayed, and completely humiliated. How could she do this? How could she lie to me about something so big? I'd always thought we had a bond, a trust. Turns out it was all a lie. I started questioning everything, our marriage, her motives, her love. All I knew was that I couldn't trust her anymore. In the days that followed, I began to look into the legal side of things. I knew she was planning to file for divorce soon, and I had a sinking feeling that she was trying to take everything, our house, our savings, everything we built. She'd already transferred a huge chunk of money out of our account, and I suspected she was hiding more. She'd always been manipulative, but now I saw her for what she really was, a cheater, a thief, and a liar. And that's when I decided I needed to fight back. I couldn't let her walk away with everything, especially not after what she'd done. I started gathering evidence, screenshots of the transfers, copies of the emails, even recording some of her conversations. I knew I had to be careful. She was clever, and I didn't want to give her any excuse to spin things against me. Now, I'm just waiting for the right moment to act. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I'm done trusting her. She's burned that bridge, and I've got to protect what's left of what we had. It's a mess, but I'm determined to get to the bottom of this and make her pay for the betrayal she's thrown in my face. The more I dug into her financials and her secret communications, the clearer it became that Lisa had been planning her escape for a long time. She'd always been good at hiding her true intentions behind a bitchy smirk and a sharp tongue, but now the mask was slipping. I found more than just the $250, $0 transfer. There were emails between her and her sister, Susan, discussing getting out and starting fresh somewhere far away, all while pretending to be the perfect wife at home. What really made my blood boil was discovering that Lisa had been secretly funneling money into her sister's account for months. She'd even lied about needing it for emergencies. But I found receipts for luxury shopping sprees, a new car, and a vacation to all paid for with our joint account. She'd been draining us dry, all the while telling me she loved me and that she was just stressed. Yeah, right. The woman had a plan and I was just collateral damage. Then there was the fake inheritance scheme she'd been pushing me to sign up for. She convinced me it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I was stupid enough to fall for it. I trusted her stupidly. It was all a lie. The inheritance was fake, a complete scam designed to lure in investors like me. She'd been using it to justify transferring money out of our account, saying it was for our future, but it was just a cover. I found emails where she was coordinating with some shady broker, talking about how much she could scam from the scheme and how she'd use the money for her new life. That's when I realized she'd never loved me at all. She'd been using me, cheating on me, and stealing from me all along. She played the perfect wife, but her real plan was to take everything and run. I felt like I'd been hit with a sledgehammer. How could I have been so blind? I'd trusted her with my life, my money, my future, and she'd been laughing behind my back. I knew I had to act fast before she managed to spin her lies and make herself look like the victim. The day she filed for divorce, I already had a folder of evidence, screenshots of the bank transfers, her secret emails, and even recordings of her on the phone with her sister. I planned to confront her in court, but I also wanted to make sure she couldn't just walk away with everything. I talked to a lawyer, and we started to prepare a case, not just for the divorce but for the financial theft. She drained our joint account, transferred hundreds of thousands, and probably hidden more. I knew she'd claim I'd stolen the house, but I had proof that I'd always been the one paying the mortgage, that the house was in both our names. Still, I was worried she'd try to manipulate the court, spin some story about how I was abusive or unstable to get the house and the money. The betrayal cut deep. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach every time I remembered her sneaking off with Jason, lying and stealing from us. I didn't sleep much, kept replaying her lies, trying to figure out how I'd been so blind. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized that I had to fight for what was rightfully mine, for what I'd earned, my house, my savings, my dignity. I started reaching out to people who could help, lawyers, financial advisors, even private investigators. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I was angry, yes, but mostly I was determined. She thought she could manipulate the system, lie her way out of everything, and leave me holding the bag. But I had proof and I was ready to fight. This whole mess has changed me. I used to think marriage was about trust, about building a life together, but now I see it for what it is, a gamble. Sometimes you lose. Sometimes you get by someone you thought loved you. I don't know what's coming next, but I do know I won't be again. I've learned to be cautious, to watch every move, and to protect myself. Because if you don't, someone like Lisa will take everything you have, and you'll be left with nothing but the pain of betrayal. The day I finally decided to take action was a turning point. I had all my evidence compiled, screenshots, bank statements, emails, voice recordings, and I knew I had to be strategic. I reached out to a lawyer who specialized in divorce and financial fraud. From that moment, everything moved fast. She was a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Corinne, and she immediately understood the situation. Her advice was straightforward: gather everything, stay calm, and prepare for a fight. Lisa, of course, didn't take the news well. She was furious when I told her I was going to take legal action. Her bitchy attitude turned even nastier. She called me paranoid, crazy, and accused me of trying to ruin her life. Her lies started to unravel even more at that point. She insisted she was innocent, she was just stressed, that the money transfers were for emergencies, and that I was just jealous of her success. I could barely look at her without feeling disgusted. The woman I had loved, or thought I loved, was nothing but a manipulative, cheating thief. And now she was trying to turn the tables, making me out to be the bad guy. It was infuriating. I knew I had to stay focused. I kept reminding myself that I had the truth on my side. Things got even messier when she filed for divorce. She tried to claim I was abusive and unstable, hopping to sway the court in her favor. She even brought up petty things, like my past mistakes and some bad decisions I'd made years ago, to paint a picture of me as unfit. But I had my evidence, and I made sure my lawyer was prepared. We filed a motion to freeze her assets and prevent her from transferring any more money. Meanwhile, I started talking to friends and family to get support. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry beyond measure. The woman I'd trusted with my life had been secretly plotting her escape, stealing from us and lying to my face. Every time I thought about her lying in bed, pretending to be the perfect wife, I wanted to scream. One of the most shocking moments came when I found out she'd been secretly talking to her sister about how she planned to take the house, our house, worth over $1 million, and sell it. She'd been convincing her sister that I was a crazy, jealous husband who was trying to control everything. I knew she'd try to spin her story in court, but I had the documentation to prove otherwise. I also discovered that she'd been making secret calls to Jason, even after she filed for divorce. She told him she was getting rid of her husband, and that she was done with everything. That made me realize she wasn't planning to settle peacefully. She was planning to go all out, to take everything she could and disappear. The worst part, I felt like I'd been a fool for so long. I'd worked hard, provided for her, trusted her, and in the end she betrayed me at every turn. The betrayal was so deep that I questioned everything: my judgment, my marriage, my own sanity. But I also knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to stand up for myself, for what was rightfully mine. Now I was on the brink of a court battle I knew would be brutal. She was already spinning her lies, trying to make me look like the villain. But I had facts, I had proof, and I was determined to fight for my house, my money, and my dignity. No matter how bitchy she got, no matter how much she tried to manipulate the system, I was ready. This was war, and I wasn't going down without a fight. The court date finally arrived, and I felt like I was walking into a battle I couldn't afford to lose. Lisa looked the same bitchy, manipulative woman she always was, smirking, dismissive, confident she could spin her lies into winning. But I had the evidence, and I was ready to use every bit of it. The legal team had prepared my case meticulously. Proof of the financial transfers, emails with her sister, the fake inheritance scheme, even recordings of her admitting to some of her plans. The courtroom was tense, and Lisa's lawyer tried to paint her as the victim, someone overwhelmed by stress just trying to make a fresh start. She played the innocent wife, crying crocodile tears about how I was trying to ruin her life and how I was controlling. I kept my composure, knowing I had the facts on my side. I also had witnesses, friends who saw her secret calls, her secret meetings with Jason, and her attempts to transfer assets. When my turn came, I presented everything. The bank statements showing the transfers, the emails where she discussed her plans, the recordings of her admitting she was done with her husband. I was careful, methodical, and relentless. I explained how she'd manipulated me into signing that fake inheritance scheme, how she'd secretly transferred money to her sister, and how she'd been planning her escape for months. Lisa's face was pale, and her bitchy attitude melted into anger and frustration. She tried to deny everything, but her lies crumbled under the weight of the evidence. She claimed I'd been abusive, that I'd stolen from her, and that she was just trying to protect herself. But the judge saw through her bullshit. The evidence was clear. She'd lied, cheated, and stolen from us. The judge's decision was swift. She ordered Lisa to return the stolen money, froze her assets, and awarded me the house. I couldn't believe it. After everything I'd been through, her lies, her cheating, her manipulations, I was finally getting justice. It wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about reclaiming my dignity. But the aftermath was complicated. Lisa, furious and vowing revenge, refused to accept defeat. She started spreading rumors claiming I'd been violent and unstable. She even hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on me, trying to paint me as some kind of monster. I knew she'd do anything to discredit me, but I had my proof that I'd been the victim all along. The house was mine, but the scars remained. I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I'd fought hard and I'd won, but at what cost? I lost trust in someone I thought was my partner, and I realized how fragile everything really was. I also learned that money and betrayal go hand in hand. She'd used both to tear me down. Now, I'm trying to rebuild my life. I've moved out, started therapy, and focused on my kids. The betrayal still stings, but I'm learning to live with it. I wish I could say I'm completely healed, but I'm not. Still, I know one thing. I will never let anyone manipulate or hurt me like that again. The best revenge is to rebuild myself, stronger than ever, and never trust blindly again. If there's anything I've learned from all this, it's that real strength comes from standing your ground, even when everything around you is falling apart. Trust is a fragile thing, and once broken, it's almost impossible to mend. But life goes on, and I plan to make sure I never get like this again. Looking back now, I realize how much this entire ordeal has changed me. I used to think marriage was about trust, about sharing your life with someone who's supposed to have your back no matter what. Turns out I was naive. Lisa showed me that sometimes people will do everything they can to take what they want, even if it means lying, cheating, and stealing. The financial betrayal was the worst part. She drained our joint account, transferred hundreds of thousands, and planned to disappear with the house worth over $1 million. It's still hard to believe she managed to keep her lies going for so long. She played the perfect wife, the victim, the innocent, while secretly plotting her escape. I trusted her with everything, and she used that trust to destroy us from the inside out. Getting through the court battle was exhausting. Every day was a new fight, more lies, more manipulation, more attempts to turn the tables. But I stayed focused. I knew I had the truth on my side and I refused to let her manipulate the system anymore. When the judge finally ruled in my favor, it felt like a huge weight had been lifted. I got the house back and I knew I'd done everything I could to protect what was mine. Still, I carry the scars. I don't think I'll ever fully trust anyone again, not in the same way. But I've learned that strength isn't about never getting hurt. It's about the resilience to pick yourself up after being knocked down. I've come to understand that betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you who you really are. What I want to share with anyone reading this is simple: be cautious with trust. People can hide their true selves behind a mask, and sometimes that mask is so convincing you don't see the betrayal coming until it's too late. Protect yourself, your money, your heart, your sanity. Because once someone crosses that line, it's almost impossible to go back. I've learned to rebuild, to focus on my kids and myself. I'm not the same man I was before, but I'm stronger. I have boundaries now and I know what I won't accept. I also know that revenge isn't about hurting others. It's about reclaiming your life and dignity. I fought for my house, my savings, my reputation, and I won. That's what matters most. So, if there's one thing I want anyone in a similar situation to remember, it's this: don't ignore the red flags. Trust your instincts, protect your assets, and never let anyone manipulate you into losing everything. Because betrayal, whether emotional or financial, leaves scars. But it also gives you a chance to rebuild, stronger, wiser, and more aware of what truly matters.